my song. Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's insane. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah!
Once upon a time, Marvel Comics built one of the most exciting storylines that I had ever read in Marvel Comics. It was called Dark Reign, a world where the bad guys had won. And it wasn't an alternate universe, it was the actual MCU 616 universe. The Avengers were out and the Dark Avengers were in. Venom is Spider-Man, Bullseye is Hawkeye, Norman Osborn is a goddamn Iron Patriot, some sort of mix of Iron Man and an old Iron Man suit with the American flag on it. And we the fans, we waited years as this story arc went on for a reckoning. For the real Spider-Man to punch his symbiote-possessed doppelganger in the face. For Hawkeye to shoot Bullseye through his fake purple cowl. For Wolverine to claw down his own damn son, Daken, who had been doing the fake Wolverine thing. But when the time came, they didn't. Nobody did anything. Siege, the 4-issue miniseries, big finale that they had for this series, it subverted everything. No payoff, no showdown, just a weird non-ending where expectations were dodged and the readers were told, what you wanted isn't as good as what we're going to give you. And that's become the motto of modern storytelling, hasn't it? Subvert expectations. You know, we can't have people predicting or wishing for an ending that they might expect to happen. But here's the thing. Expectation is not the enemy. Expectations are earned. They're what the audience dreams of seeing come true. And that brings me to Cobra Kai, a show that didn't just honor expectations, it beat the crap out of them, bowed to Mr. Miyagi's shrine, and flew a crane kick straight into our hearts. And it did that from the very beginning of the show. And we are going to talk about it today on our breakdown, our celebration of Cobra Kai. I just finished the final season of Cobra Kai. And guys, man, despite some cheesiness, it's a TV show. It stars like lots of actors who aren't necessarily the greatest in the world, but they're all charming. They all bring something to the table. But really, the thing that makes Cobra Kai work is the writing. And the writing works because it is a loving send-up to the source material that is The Karate Kid. Now, quick break to drop something epic. I'm gearing up to launch a Kickstarter for the ultimate Jesse Blaze music collection. So if you're a fan of mine, if you appreciate me and the things that I do, please be ready to check this out. It's 9 full albums, over 100 tracks. Well, actually, that's not true. It's just under 100 tracks, like 93 tracks, something like that. Well, there's going to be bonus tracks and stuff. So, I mean, I guess I was right when I wrote 100, because when it all said and done, it'll probably be close to that. Anyway, it's going to be pressed limited edition CDs, a sculpted USB that looks like my logo, which is pretty cool. Some possible record releases for maybe Baptized by Fire and my most recent album, which isn't out yet. It's called Son of a God, which this is kind of to promote. But it's also to promote the fact that I've been putting out music for ages, and it's great, and it deserves your attention. 9 albums. I didn't even realize I made that much stuff. So this is for the people who have been paying attention and for the people who haven't been paying attention, so they know, hey, Jesse Snyder makes a lot of music, and it's great. You should check it out. If you haven't checked me out on Spotify or iTunes, most of these albums are available. But this is going to be the definitive archive. Everything I've ever made, from the underground classics to the spiritual transmissions, the solfeggio frequency record that I just released, which has healing. It's basically healing frequencies that are on every track. I'm planning on doing a whole bunch more of these solfeggio frequency albums. It's called the Solfeggio Transmissions. If you just type in Jesse Blaze into wherever you listen to music, you'll find it. But anyway, this campaign isn't live yet, but you can go sign up now to get notifications the second it drops. Head to Kickstarter page. You can hit the notify me button and be a part of the movement to bring this music into physical reality. And I mean, really, this is a movement, because I mean, the only reason I did it was because so many people asked me if I was going to release a physical copy of the Solfeggio Transmissions, and I wasn't planning on it. And then all of a sudden, I kind of got the inspiration of, like, I've never really done any physical copies of anything. So I started to put this together, especially because the Sugar and Bones campaign is just taking a little bit longer than I wanted to get everything together. But we've got our cover artists and logos and things that are getting worked on right now. So this campaign is going to launch, I think, on the 26th. And yeah, this is for the real ones, the collectors, the believers, the tribe. The link is in the show notes. I already put it in there, so you can go lock it in and sign up for notifications. Anyway, Sugar and Bones is also, you can check out Sugar and Bones. Just follow the company Blacklight District Studios page, and you'll see Sugar and Bones. You can sign up for notifications there. You can also go to bldsts.com, and you can sign up for notifications through our website. Anyway, additionally, every Monday I do my show, Everything They Don't Want You to Know. There's a really great episode that we just put out on Monday, which is about enlightenment. Now I'm doing everything live on YouTube to start. So if you want to see me talking about it for the past 2 weeks, I've been doing Coolest Geek Alive and Everything They Don't Want You to Know. You can go find us on the Blacklight District Studios page and check it out live. But if you want to do just the podcast thing, type in Everything They Don't Want You to Know into wherever you're doing your podcast thing, and you will find that show. We're like 36, 37 episodes in now, and some of our episodes will blow your fucking mind. You can follow me on social media. I'm sure you know how to figure out that. And you can email me at jesseblaze@jessesnyder.com. Let's get into this. The origin story for Cobra Kai, it is a humble rise. It's really kind of cool. This show started in 2018 on YouTube Red. Yes, remember when that was a thing? YouTube Red? Long gone now. And Cobra Kai did not go with it because of the simple idea behind the show, which was, what if Johnny Lawrence was the good guy? And there is a viral video that had gone around where basically it redressed the entire Karate Kid film, the original, as actually Daniel-san being the antagonist and not the protagonist. I think this had come before the Cobra Kai show ever came out. And it really did a good job and went a long way in sort of demonstrating that there was a certain perspective on the Karate Kid film that said that Johnny was actually, getting a raw deal. He was an ex-degenerate. He'd become a really good guy through karate. He'd cleaned his life up. He had a girlfriend that he really liked, and they were on the rocks. They were breaking up. And this new kid, Daniel-san, comes in, and he is basically gets in the middle of this romance that he had with this girl, the girl of his dreams, while he's changing his life around. And all of the fire that, Daniel lit within him, put him on a bad path to screw up his life. And if you go and you type in, Johnny was the good guy all along, or some version of this, the truth about the Karate Kid, you can find this video that went viral ages ago and still gets passed around to this day. But this show was literally demonstration of that idea that, Johnny had kind of gotten a raw deal. And it works. It works on so many levels. I think it's Daniel Zapka, or William Zapka, the actor who played Johnny. He is excellent. He's, just charming enough and strong of an actor enough to anchor this thing. And, this show could have been a punchline. The Karate Kid, but now everyone's old, And instead of that, it's a 6-season strong, huge hit across generations, delivered heart, humor, deep respect for the original films. And despite limited reach at the beginning with YouTube Red, it gained critical acclaim, fan love on YouTube. And when Netflix picked it up in 2020, the series exploded. Cobra Kai became a multi-generational hit. Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z all showing up to wax on, wax off. And why? Because it understood what made the original great. It kept the spirit of that film alive. It grew the story organically, and it gave every legacy character dignity. That's why it lasted 6 seasons and ended on its own terms. A lot of people don't realize how important that is, but literally, Coolest Geek Alive, this podcast, it is dedicated to the honoring of source material. The writing, when it's done right, when things service the old fans and the new fans at the same time, you get another level of artistry that connects generations. And when you abandon the original source material, when you just do it yourself or just do whatever you want to do, you lose that. You lose the faith and the excitement that the original audience has, the desire for parents to turn their kids onto a show, to introduce something that they might be able to enjoy together. You lose that. And there is never a reason to do that. Just hearing, oh, I love that movie, Karate Kid, is enough to make some of these kids go watch a show. Oh, yeah? Oh, you heard the one? And if you actually include the adults in the process where you're honoring the original film, and not only does the Karate Kid, does the Cobra Kai show honor the original Karate Kid, it honors almost all of the movies. And we're going to get into some of the ways specifically that it does honor the original material. And I mean, it does. It does such honor to the originals. And I'm not that big of a Karate Kid fan. I like Karate Kid. I saw it with other people around, I was probably 6 or 7. I've enjoyed that movie. I've watched it again, here or there, because it's a sports movie. It's a movie about, overcoming, fear and adversity. And, those movies are always great. Who doesn't want to watch a movie about somebody putting their mind, setting their heart to something and achieving success? That's a recipe for success in your film. And the fact that they bothered to honor the original film and the sequels as well, and have done it in such an incredible way. I mean, it deserves to be praised up and down for what is really going on here. Okay, it's the honoring of the source material. So let's get into some of this stuff. The Karate Kid universe. We're going to break down some of the films and the Cobra Kai carryovers that we have. Karate Kid, the original, came out in 1984, and the plot summary, just to give you the basics, if you haven't seen any of this. Daniel LaRusso, he's a new kid in California, is being bullied by Cobra Kai students led by Johnny Lawrence. It's a little bit more complicated than that. He does insert himself into this other relationship. He gets himself into some trouble with Johnny Lawrence, and he's trained by his neighbor, Mr. Miyagi, in the art of karate, learning discipline, patience, and inner strength. And basically, what he's taught by Mr. Miyagi is sort of true karate. And what Johnny Lawrence is being taught is a little bit more cutthroat and less about, finding your balance and finding discipline, and a little bit more about striking hard and striking first and striking fast and no mercy. And it's just a bit more of a cutthroat way of fighting than what Daniel learns. And basically, because Daniel is taught a more balanced approach to the art form, he's able to beat Johnny in the end, especially because Johnny's really he's out for revenge on this guy who stole his girlfriend and has been kind of tormenting him a little bit in school, because it's not completely one-sided in the Daniel LaRusso, Johnny Lawrence feud, which makes the Cobra Kai series that much better, because they honor this and they honor all the real details of the original film, something that makes the people who watch Cobra Kai want to, not just need to, like they don't really need to, because everything is in Cobra Kai that you need to watch to enjoy the film, to enjoy the series, but it makes the audience want to go back and enjoy these other things. When comic book films are done right, it makes the audience want to go read the original source material. I'm sure millions of people read The Lord of the Rings because those films were so great and they wanted to get more information. They wanted more from the story. They wanted to know it more deeply. When the source material is honored, and it's obvious that it's honored, especially because there are fans of the source material who go, oh yeah, man, it's really accurate to the film. It's really honoring. It's doing such a great job. Every person who opens their mouth and says that, and trust me, people say that. People have been talking for ages about how much Lord of the Rings is honoring the source material. It's not perfect, but there's more. And they go, oh yeah, but there's more too. You should really read the books if you really liked it. And the original Marvel films, the first few phases, whether it's Iron Man, which condensed many, many years of Iron Man stories into its origin, or, Captain America, or Thor's takes some liberties, but there is a lot of honoring going on in the original MCU. And this is the thing that made the audiences cross over and multiple generations be interested in checking out future films and keep on keeping on for a long time. And it was when Captain Marvel completely abandoned the origins of Captain Marvel, who was the original Captain Marvel. I've talked before about if they had honored the death of Captain Marvel, which was the first graphic novel that Marvel Comics had ever put out, and set up Carol Danvers as his successor in a film, the audience would have really gotten behind that. I really believe they would have, despite so many little blemishes on Brie Larson's record in terms of interviews and little faux pas that she made along the way. but they decided to just kind of do it on their own and just throw everything else out the window. And something like the blip in the Marvel universe, where now all of a sudden there was 5 years where half of the planet had disappeared because Thanos had snapped and they all disappeared. That was a terrible decision because it made a splitting point between the source material, which was the original reason why so many of the audience members were there in the first place, and now the audience for the films. And it allowed them to just ignore all of the history and just do their own She-Hulk show, which was a terrible idea. Jennifer Walters is a great and fully formed character in the comics, but just making her up, like everybody like me who loved She-Hulk and was excited to watch that, we were devastated. And for all the people who might be interested in the new one, it's really a crapshoot when you just create a completely different version of the character. These characters are created all the time. There's tons of characters that go on in the comics that do not succeed. They do not land with the fans. And when these characters don't land, they move on to other characters. Characters that you might adapt something from, like She-Hulk, they're being adapted because people already love them. So the idea that you're going to have the same success that is rarely had in comics, where a character lands and the audience really likes that character and connects with it, and it has long acclaimed runs in the comic books, you don't want to risk having to reinvent that level of success with just a bunch of random people who are just going to go, oh, well, it's a female Hulk. Okay, whatever. Jennifer Walters, she had succeeded. She had crossed over. She was a character that people liked. She shows up in the Fantastic Four and the Avengers and all these other places, not because they were forcing it on the audience, but because the audience that had been introduced to her really liked her. She worked. She was a success. Don't give up on the success of the source material for your new, better project that's going to have a new, better, more mainstream audience. Don't give up on the audience that you already have. Honor them as you make great new content, and you will create something that will really stand the test of time. And I believe that more things will come out of this Karate Kid universe because of the honoring that has already gone on here. And I guarantee you that it will. Anyway, the original movie, it builds up to a big tournament called the All Valley, where Daniel ultimately defeats Johnny with an iconic crane kick that most people know. That whenever you see anybody put their leg up to do the crane kick, they are referencing the original Karate Kid and the final move in the final boss fight that was Daniel versus Johnny. And some of the key pieces that are echoed in Cobra Kai. You've got, of course, the Johnny versus Daniel rivalry, which, as I said, has been explored in viral YouTube videos and other places. But the entire show is ultimately born from the fallout of this teenage feud. And it is handled beautifully, and really just, it makes the movies important. It makes the movies important in such a beautiful way. And I really just like this whole episode, just consider this me going, chef's kiss. Mwah, mwah, mwah. You've done something right, my guys. You've got Miyagi-Do, which is Mr. Miyagi, his sensei. His philosophy turned into its own dojo, which becomes the rivalry of Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do. But Miyagi-Do, even though it's like the soft approach to this thing, Daniel is sort of the antagonist for a lot of the series here. And it's handled so well because Johnny is just this underdog that you understand, and he's gone through a lot, and he wasn't all bad to begin with, and so many of these things were circumstantial and misunderstandings, and the way it is opened up and made real. Magneto's a great villain because you understand why he's doing what he's doing, and very much so you understand where Johnny Lawrence has been coming from, who he is as a character, what he was going through in his life both at that time and now, all these years later, as he's been basically haunted by his loss at the All Valley. And of course, the balance, defense, honor, Daniel-san is teaching this to a new generation of kids who become essentially the rivals. And a lot of this rivalry keeps going back and forth between Cobra Kai, and now he's teaching kids and he's trying to teach them a different way. And, Daniel's out to destroy Cobra Kai. It's like somebody walked over his grave that the Cobra Kai brand is back in any way, shape, or form. And it's wonderful. The All Valley Tournament plays a big part in the show. It's a central battleground across multiple seasons. And of course, other things that come into the other movies, which we'll get into in a second. The sweep the leg trauma, which is Johnny's shame over the moment in the fight where he's basically being told to cheat, and he injures Daniel because his sensei Kreese is not a good guy, but Kreese gets time to be a shitty guy, be a better guy, be a shitty guy again, and ultimately be exonerated in the end. And I'm gonna spoil a lot of this show because I want to be able to fully talk about how great everything that they're doing here is, because that desire to see Kreese exonerated, it's the promise of Johnny being exonerated as our main character. He's the protagonist now. He's the good guy. And that leaves the door open for his sensei to somehow be exonerated. And they fucking stick the landing. They stick every landing in this series for the most part. I mean, there's a thing or two that I said, well, that could have been better. But ultimately, they give the audience what they wanted every step of the way. Unlike that example I used of The Siege, which was the end of this Dark Avengers storyline in the comics, which, oh man, the Dark Avengers was one of the longest arcs in comics. It went across so many different books. There were so many different people telling stories, deepening what was going on, but just having these villains impersonating the good guys. You spent a couple years going, "Ooh, Spider-Man's gonna get him for this. Captain America and Iron Man, and we're gonna get him for this." And when that moment never came, oh my God, you just wanted to strangle Brian Michael Bendis, strangle the Marvel editors for allowing this to go on. And you knew it was some sort of like, well, that's what everybody's expecting, and we can't give them what they're expecting. Bullshit. Give us what we're expecting. If you're going to give us what we're not expecting, make it make sense in some glorious way of why we didn't get what we were expecting. And in the ways that this might subvert your expectations, it certainly is doing it in a very satisfying way. Also, you got the crane kick, which reappears several times symbolically and literally as a legacy move. And Miyagi's training methods, wax on, wax off. Some of the biggest moments of that movie are Mr. Miyagi teaching Daniel how to fight, but the beginning of him teaching him how to fight is him teaching him how to clean, and he's teaching him how to wax things and wax on, wax off, but what he's teaching him is the 8-point blocking system. Here, this is how you're gonna block all these moves, but he doesn't know that at the time, and he sort of gets like fed up, and finally Mr. Miyagi shows him what he's really been teaching him this whole time. So it's very cute, the original Karate Kid movie. I highly recommend a watch of it. And you will enjoy it. And if you've watched Cobra Kai, watching the original Karate Kid movie and even the other ones, the sequels, will deepen your appreciation. And the sequels are more worth watching, actually. That's another thing I should mention. You can make things that didn't necessarily work, that weren't actually that popular, or people weren't that into them at the time. You can make them holy grails if you take the pieces of the story that work and that are good and honor them and make them wonderful through something that's great. Cobra Kai has essentially lifted out of the dredges Karate Kid 2, Karate Kid 3, Karate Kid 4. All of these movies are now better and will be more enjoyable for you now that you've seen this future TV show than it was before. And like I said, I'm live on YouTube right now. I've got a bunch of people in the chat talking about some stuff. Been listening. Love a lot of the songs. Pretty awesome. Oh, thank you, Arnie. I appreciate it. He's talking about my music. Like I said, I'm putting out a whole big box set of all my albums. Arnie said he's been listening. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. I'm sure I got Arnie his interest with the solfeggio frequencies because Arnie's pretty spiritual. He's a pretty cool dude. Try to follow him on Facebook and wherever he has his stuff. Arnie Layton. You can find him in the comments too in the YouTube. Cover artist is amazing. Just wait. Oh yeah, the cover artist for Sugar and Bones is awesome. We're really excited about that. We'll make an official announcement when the time is right. But really, we got some great people working on Sugar and Bones magazine. If everyone is in here invites 3 people, that would be 9 more viewers. You're right. I don't play the algorithms. I don't do the social media game. I don't like social media. I don't like the way they try to control us. And I just refuse. as a podcast, this podcast is promoted to people through the podcast playground, and we have a really great listenership. I mean, we're in the top 10% of all podcasts all across the world. But when it comes to my live stream right now, it's a pretty humble beginning. So if you want to get into some of the live stream, I'm usually recording on Wednesdays and Mondays, somewhere in the afternoon. But even then, it's hard for me to just be really beholden to a certain time. But go follow us, Blacklight District Studios, on YouTube, and you'll get notified when we go live, and you'll see our videos get posted afterwards. I hope that you do. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Arnie, for sharing. I appreciate it, guys. And Patricia Parker shared on Facebook. You guys are sweet. Really appreciate that. Anyway, let's get back into it. Karate Kid Part 2, which, like I said, the franchise is, the first one is really the one. But after that, the other movies are worth a view, and worth even more of a view now if you've watched Cobra Kai. I would say watch Cobra Kai because it's just a little bit more to the modern sensibilities. It's a great show. And then go back and check out some of these things. At a certain point in time, you should just go watch The Karate Kid. The Karate Kid holds up as a Rocky type movie. It came out around the same time and, hit you in the feels in a pretty similar way. But in Karate Kid 2, which came out in '86, Daniel travels to Okinawa with Mr. Miyagi after the death of Miyagi's father. They face old rivalries, including Miyagi's feud with Sato and Daniel's conflict with Chozen. Chozen is a character who shows up in the Cobra Kai series, and his arc is really fun. And there's a brutal and honor-obsessed, fighter Chozen is in the original movie, and it's cool. The parts with him are pretty badass, and there's a lot of things to like about that movie. Some of the key elements that are featured in Cobra Kai: the Okinawa storyline. Season 3 brings Daniel back to Okinawa for soul searching and growth. Chozen has a redemption arc, as so many of the great bad guys in these movies are. And really, the bad guys are some of the best features of all of the Karate Kid movies. And Chozen is the bad guy from Karate Kid 2, and he has a great arc and a great redemption story. Former villain. And he returns as a badass ally and a sensei in the later seasons. Like I said, I just finished the final season last night. Plus, you got Miyagi's deeper past. Cobra Kai enriches his legacy by introducing more of his spiritual and ancestral wisdom. Totally true. And then Miyagi pressure point techniques. Chozen teaches these to Daniel in Cobra Kai, used crucially in the final season. Well, not so much in the final season, but in the second to last season, it shows up a lot. And then you got Kumiko's return, reappears in Cobra Kai as a grounding influence for Daniel and a beautiful echo of their past. And Kumiko is Daniel's love interest, which they abandoned the love interest from the first movie, and he gets like a new love interest in every one of the Karate Kid sequels. I'm just going to move into the next one so we can go through, and then I'll talk about anything additional afterwards. The Karate Kid Part 3, '89. You've got Terry Silver, and I'll just go through what I have written first so I don't double down. But he's a wealthy, sadistic friend of Kreese. They've got a whole backstory, which you see in the Cobra Kai show. He manipulates Daniel into temporarily joining Cobra Kai, hoping to corrupt him. And this is all great stuff that gets brought into the franchise in great ways. Daniel's pushed into darkness, but eventually he returns to Miyagi-Do, which isn't Miyagi-Do, but returns to Miyagi's teachings, and defeats Mike Barnes, who's another one of these great bad guys from the franchise who does show up in the Cobra Kai series. And of course, he defeats him in the All Valley once again. So some of the key elements: you got Terry Silver, the main antagonist of Cobra Kai's final arc, who's a master manipulator and expansionist. He is awesome. He was fucking great then, and I didn't necessarily even appreciate how great he was then. He's so great now. It's like, it made me so mad that he hasn't been like all over different films and stuff, because he's just a great bad guy. You love to fucking hate him. And when he gets, when he has like these different like sort of heart to hearts and like, I've had to change a heart, you really kind of like him and believe him. And they do a good job about making you kind of not necessarily feel for him, but understand his motivations, where he's coming from in this movie. And even in the other one, I mean, he is just a wonderfully terrible bad guy. And he deserved to have gone on to a lot more like film and TV success. And I have not seen him in anything besides Karate Kid 3 and the Cobra Kai series, where he just out of the park, man. Terry Silver, fucking awesome. You've also got the Mike Barnes character who shows up in smaller amounts, but he's a bad boy of karate. He returns in Cobra Kai season 5, and surprisingly reformed, but in a satisfying way. And then the idea of the corrupted mentorship, Daniel's vulnerability to Silver foreshadows what happens to Tori and others in Cobra Kai, and even just the idea that like Cobra Kai is more than just a bane of his existence from the first movie. Like people understand like him not appreciating Cobra Kai from that first movie, but it is much deeper for those who saw the whole franchise, which I had. And I had remembered him becoming a member of Cobra Kai for a moment. And when they tie back into those things and into Daniel LaRusso trying to destroy Cobra Kai, trying to get it out of the valley, he doesn't want it in his hometown. He wants this thing out of here. He's defeated it a few times already. And now here it comes again, this terrible memory from his past. It works so well. And this movie made so much of the Cobra Kai series work that much more deeply, especially with the introduction of Terry Silver, who is just an incredible bad guy. And gets his fucking, just desserts in the end of the movie, in the end of the TV show. Sorry, my dyslexia when I got to go movie, TV show. Certain things I'll flip words backwards. Finally, Cobra Kai as a brand weaponized by the wealthy, which Silver literally globalizes Cobra Kai as a franchise empire in the show. And all of that stuff begins here in The Karate Kid 3. The next Karate Kid in 1994, this one was less popular. I don't even know if I saw it. I don't remember it very much. But, basically, Miss Miyagi trained a troubled teenage girl named Julie Pierce, played by Hilary Swank. She was dealing with grief and bullying. The movie explores Miyagi's continued legacy as a teacher beyond Daniel. Daniel had outgrown the role by that time, but Mr. Miyagi was still like this wise old man or whatever. And so, they gave her gave him somebody new to train. And even though she doesn't show up in the show at all, it has teased her and left the door open for her to return at some point. But I guess they were never able to figure out anything to do with her or what they would do with her if they brought her back. But it showed Miyagi's broader reach. Cobra Kai acknowledges that Miyagi trained more than just Daniel, expanding his mythos, and training a new kind of student. Julie's story is spiritually mirrored in how Johnny trains kids like Miguel and Hawk, outsiders struggling with pain and power. And Miguel and Hawk, if you haven't seen the show, they're two of the main characters, especially Miguel. So let's move into thematic through lines. And this is like, just what Cobra Kai carries forward in general. First of all, you got legacy and redemption. Okay, every character is haunted or inspired by who they used to be. The past isn't erased, it's confronted, reframed, and either conquered or repeated. And with Johnny, you've got him dealing with Cobra Kai, where he had a terrible end to that. The first movie ends with him getting his trophy broken and sort of embarrassed in front of his whole dojo, of not in the dojo, but outside, the competition where he had lost, and his sensei Kreese literally attacking him. And I think Miyagi steps in and helps him out, puts Kreese through a window, I'm pretty sure. There's a lot of trauma there. This guy is the guy who taught him how to fight, helped give him confidence, made him the man that he was. And this is something that they returned to in the final season that I just finished in the past few weeks. And it was great, really powerfully done. And the legacy and redemption with Silver, who had basically considered the film, The Karate Kid 3, like a loss. He tried to corrupt Daniel, but it didn't really work. And now he comes back to sort of like get his revenge for not having succeeded the first time. And the back and forth that goes down with Kreese and him, and they're sort of turning, first they're friends, and then eventually they become enemies. And by the end of it, they have a major blowout in the final season, which is excellent. Even though it's a little hard to believe that Kreese is still doing karate when you see him move around. He's a little. I mean, all the guys are a little old, and some of their fighting ability can be a little bit uncredible. But the story is really just nails it so much. You want to believe. You want all this to exist just as it is, because it feels right. Emotionally it feels right, and it's just constantly honoring where it came from, and that's what makes it so great. And then, of course, you got the legacy and redemption of Mr. Miyagi, which, Mr. Miyagi didn't necessarily need redemption. However, in the final season, they went out of their way to demonstrate that Mr. Miyagi wasn't exactly perfect and that he had some skeletons in his closet. One of the big things was that, he had accidentally killed somebody in the, I'm going to mess up the name of this, the fighting tournament. I'll wait until I have it written down somewhere. It's a really cutthroat fighting tournament, and he accidentally killed his opponent during the fight. So something like that, and then a couple other pieces that were a little bit of red herrings and some things, some difficulty for Daniel LaRusso to go through in terms of like doubting maybe his master was not this perfect man, maybe he wasn't as good as he thought he could be. But it's wonderful. It gives pathos and empathy to the audience for all of the characters. You really feel what they're going through every step of the way. And I mean, that's what makes Cobra Kai such a great show. You understand where everyone is coming from. There's no like legit bad guy, even though Terry Silver tends to step up to the plate and really be the legit bad guy by the end. But most of the characters, you're just like, oh man, like it just like hurts you to see them go through things that are gonna, force them to have to learn so many hard lessons, and they do. That's the thing. People forget this, and I've talked about this so many times over the years on the show now that we've been doing this for like almost, I don't know, like a year and a half. It's got to be longer than that. We're getting close to 2 years. So the idea that you have to make your protagonist work for whatever they want. They can't just be handed things. The more you just give them things and doors fly open for them, the audience tunes out. There's a great book, I've recommended it before, it's called Wired for Story. And it will explain to you how the sort of lizard brain, caveman brain of humanity, they are looking for very simple things when they are reading a story. And that is a protagonist who wants something, has a clear desire for something, and them struggling to get it. That's it. For all you fledgling writers out there who have been nervous to start your first thing because you're not sure, I don't know, I'm not ready, I don't know if I'm ready. You are ready if you simply acknowledge what I'm saying. The audience is only interested in a character who wants something and is struggling to achieve it. If you write a story where the character clearly wants something and is clearly struggling to get it, the more you make them struggle, the more the audience will care. The more the audience cares, the more that by the time you get to the end of the series, they will demand that you give them a happy ever after. Cobra Kai is a great example of this because all of these characters struggle so hard that the end is completely justified. The audience doesn't care how they win. They want to see them win. They love these characters. These characters have been put through a ringer. They've all fought valiantly. They've all gotten hurt. They've bled. They've lost people. They've gone through hell. And if you put your characters through hell, the audience will literally lynch you if you do not deliver a happy ever after. And in some cases, when these movies, don't, the mainstream audience will not appreciate it. Sometimes there's movies like Old Boy that aren't exactly satisfying conclusions, and there are some movies that end with not a happy ending, like say In the Mouth of Madness, that are pretty cool and exceptions to this rule. But mostly, dude, if you've put the characters through it, if you've made them earn it, that is the thing that makes the people want to watch a movie, want to watch a TV show in the first place. And if you've done that well enough, the audience is really going to be let down if the person who has been fighting for this so long and trying so hard doesn't get the thing that the audience will now believe they deserve. The recent Star Wars movies are a great example of this done poorly. Unfortunately, a lot of these strong female protagonists, the writers and the producers, they hesitate to put them through as much damage, as much heartache, as much hardship as they often do with men. Women and children first. The men are expected to go to war. The men are expected to go and do these dangerous jobs. But the women, that we're not necessarily expected as much. And when it's a minority, oftentimes they will pull the punch because, well, we don't want to be like, beating on black people. which is a silly thing because they are the protagonist. And when you're the protagonist, you're the one who has to go through it. The audience wants to see you go through it. That's just the way it goes. If you're the hero, prepare to take some punches, man. You know, don't step into that hero position if you're not ready to take some heat. I'm getting into a hero position right now, you know, as a musician. And, you know, the more I put myself out there, the more I try to talk about some of these things and try to break some ground on stuff that people generally don't want to talk about or aren't ready to talk about. I put myself in a position to be maligned, to be insulted, to be, you know, just trashed for thinking things that are a little bit out of the box or on the cutting edge of what society is ready to believe. If I was not ready to put myself into the crosshairs, I wouldn't do it, you know. But you have to be ready for that as the hero, as somebody who's going to do something heroic, something that's difficult for other people to do. That's why it's fucking difficult. That's why they pay you the big bucks. And that's why you have haters. That's why there are people who are going to go talk shit about you. And that's okay. That's what it means to be a hero. And that's okay to do to your protagonists, your heroes of your story. Make sure that you put them through the fucking ringer. All right. Second thing that Cobra Kai brings forward or carries forward, you know, from the franchise of the Karate Kid, good versus evil. It's not black and white. Cobra Kai redefined what it meant to be a bad guy. Johnny wasn't evil. Kreese wasn't just a monster. Terry Silver thought he was right. Really, and there is some of this in the movies. Granted, you get more of it in that Karate Kid 3, where he's pulled to the dark side and he comes out of it. And you know, I mean, that movie really is better than people give credit for. The Karate Kid number 3. But yes, it absolutely brings this forward and makes this even better. I mean, really, just the X-Men is just such a great depiction of this. Professor Xavier, Magneto. Of course, his team was originally called the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and eventually it was the Brotherhood of Mutants, as they realized that, well, he wouldn't think he was evil. No, he doesn't. He doesn't think he's evil. No bad guy really does. And that's why when we've talked about recently the don't fight fire with fire, don't be on the link. If you don't listen to everything they don't want you to know, you might not have heard the episode of me talking about how it's a terrible idea to fight fire with fire. They want you to fight fire with fire. They don't want you to go above this loop that we're in of victims becoming heroes, becoming villains. But that's the loop that we're in. And every bad guy thinks that they're the hero. People don't realize that they've become the bad guy. And this show, what a great metaphor it is for that. Fighting fire with fire just burns down the whole fucking world. And, you know, when Daniel LaRusso starts trying to fight back the same way, you know, all of these lessons get to be learned by all of these guys very deeply. And I mean, it's one of the other reasons why I love this show so much. 3, mentorship as transformation. Mr. Miyagi's teachings are the spiritual cornerstone of the entire franchise. But Cobra Kai honors this by showing multiple senseis passing on lessons, both healthy and toxic. And that bit of, you know, here, I learned this and let me pass this on to you because you need this. This will strengthen you. You're a victim, but you won't be a victim when I teach you the thing that gave me strength. And that is a wonderful thing as well. It's something that every father, every parent, every brother is trying to do for the ones that they love all the time. More great lessons from fucking Cobra Kai. I love a show or a film that actually teaches me something worth learning. Granted, I knew these things, but there are tons of people out there who don't necessarily know these lessons, haven't learned these lessons yet. And any show that exists on this level that is teaching these deep and meaningful lessons is just, yes, I love it. Finally, 4, fighting styles reflect worldviews. Miyagi-Do equal defense, inner peace, tradition. Cobra Kai was aggression, dominance, survival. In Eagle Fang was adaptation, individuality, hybrid power. And Eagle Fang, for those of you who watch Cobra Kai, is the eventual dojo that Johnny Lawrence has to make up for himself, Eagle Fang, which is ridiculous in the best way for him, especially the way his character is depicted in the show. And it's excellent. You know, he's just sort of a simple guy, you know, who likes 80s action films and, never really like grew out of the type of macho-ness that he was taught as a kid. And, you just love him that much more for it. You love him for his flaws. And actually, that's one of the other great things that this show does. It's essentially a bridge between the Democrats and Republicans. Johnny kind of represents the idea of what people have been led to believe Republicans are based on the media's minimization of people. The media is just constantly minimizing groups of people down to like simple one-note things that we can understand. Now the Republicans are just Nazis, which is fucking ridiculously unfair. To be calling any American that is just absurd. It's like we have any American patriot is proud of having fought World War II and that we defeated the Nazis. So to call any American a Nazi because of like your minor view of, oh well, if you're thinking this way, that basically boils down to Nazism. That is just, your lack of nuance is disturbing. There's a lot of nuance. Nobody thinks that they're the bad guy. If you want to go about trying to show somebody how they're being a little phobic or they're being a little racist, there are ways to do that, but calling them names is not going to fucking do the trick. So, yeah, I loved, especially from the beginning, how this, by humanizing Johnny, it was humanizing that sort of depiction of like a Republican sort of viewpoint. And the whole way, it just humanizes both sides, the softer side, the harder side, the softer side, the harder side. These people are really macho. These people are a little bit more, feminine and a little bit lighter, a little bit more open to maybe a liberal point of view. But it's beautiful to give nuance and give understanding to these groups of people without all of this judgment. I love the show for that in particular. Okay. So moving ahead, we got Legacy in Motion. Basically I wanted to talk about the original characters and like their full arc evolution down to the final season of the show. Now you got Daniel LaRusso, whose original arc, he's an underdog everyman. He's just moved in. He's a new kid in town. He's struggling with anger, insecurity, and needing to prove himself. He's getting, kind of feeling bullied by Johnny Lawrence and his friends. And he learns peace, balance, honor from Mr. Miyagi. He wins the All Valley, but more importantly, he wins self-respect. Now, his Cobra Kai journey, he starts off as a self-righteous and stubborn person who's lost touch with Miyagi's humility. There's a great scene in the very beginning where Johnny Lawrence comes into his establishment and he, mocks Johnny in front of his people. He's like, hey, this is the guy who I beat up, and really embarrasses Johnny, who's took that to heart. And, from the beginning, this was a pivotal moment in his life, and things have not really gone great since then. And Daniel LaRusso is, has a karate themed car dealership, and he's constantly seeing him on ads in the Valley. And he's just being haunted by this man. And then he comes in, and this guy does not demonstrate the humility of Miyagi and kicks off a rivalry that basically guides the whole series. And that rivalry turns into camaraderie and turns into eventual friendship and respect. And wonderful to see from the very first movie, these two pure bad guy, Johnny Lawrence, and, or at least in the minds of, the audience for the most part, as we're cheering as, Daniel's son kicks him in the face and, gets him out of here to win the All Valley. The fact that that rivalry is treated with enough respect and given the time and space to grow into real respect and friendship, but in a believable way, not like, now they're friends, but like oh, wow, this was really cool. I want this. I want this for them. I don't want them to be in this constant struggle anymore. I want progress for them in their lives. Kudos to the series. And I mean, that's what I wrote here. He learns to collaborate with Johnny. He recenters himself spiritually through going to Okinawa. He becomes the true steward of Miyagi's legacy, and he carries it on. And in the final season resolution, you get Daniel defeating Terry Silver, not just in combat, but philosophically. His arc is completed with grace, wisdom, and victory. He's the heart of Miyagi-Do and finally at peace. And literally, he makes peace. Miyagi-Do basically bows out of the competition for a couple of reasons. One of their members gets injured, and his daughter realizes that she doesn't have any reason to fight. She had learned how to fight to defend herself. She had defended herself. She didn't need this anymore. She had learned this to balance herself. She didn't learn it to go kick people's asses at tournaments. And I loved that. I loved her story arc ending there. There was you didn't the audience was hating it more and more, seeing her fight the girl whose name I am forgetting, who was her female rival, and they had become friends. And now it was like they're friends, and like they got to fight each other, and they got to like find the eye of the tiger to like punch each other in the face. And the tournament that they were in the end was a real blood sport, not a simple point, simple kind of fighting thing. So the idea that she would end it with going, "I'm out of this," was amazing. And then even better, when Daniel LaRusso in the final season, he has a confrontation with Terry Silver, where he's like, "Oh, I beat you. Your guys aren't even in the tournament. Like, you've dishonored Miyagi's name." And he goes, "Well, no, I don't think that I did. I don't think that I did at all. And I think I'm honoring his name completely." And then kind of basically turns it around and becomes a supporter of Cobra Kai, which Johnny in the final season comes back to because it's a way for him to continue the fight forward. And he has a reconciliation with Kreese that is really great and really earned, really well done. It was one of my favorite moments of this final season. So awesome resolution for Daniel-san. Good job, Daniel-san. That's, if you haven't seen the original movie, that's Mr. Miyagi had a really thick accent, and he would call him Daniel-san. Johnny Lawrence. His original arc, he's the bully. He loses his way under Kreese's toxic Cobra Kai doctrine. He ends Karate Kid humiliated, but not evil, just having lost. His Cobra Kai journey begins with him as a broken man. He's haunted by his past, but he becomes a teacher, a father figure, and a man of true honor without ever losing his edge. He's still Johnny, but he learns to balance himself in a number of ways. And he learns from his students. He learns from his own failures. And he becomes a better dad than he ever had been. He has an estranged son who becomes a major character in the series, who gets played as one of the bad guys. I mean, really, they did a great job creating bad guys, creating rivalries, and then exonerating the bad guys and fixing the rivalries in ways that felt earned. And, you were just glad that all these rivalries were over, because all of these super humanized characters were getting out of the lurch, were getting out of the quagmire that they were in, out of the cycle of pain and torment that they've been in for so long. Now they've gone to a new place. It's great stuff. The final season resolution with Johnny, he becomes a real father to both Robbie, his son, his biological son, and Miguel, his adopted son, for his girlfriend that he ends up dating, Miguel's mom, and they get married famously in the last season. I won't spoil every little bit because you don't need to know how all that plays out. He steps up for his unborn child. She gets pregnant, and he's got a new baby on the way, and he defeats Kreese's legacy. Not with violence, but with love, loyalty, and growth. It's going to make me cry. A full redemption arc across the board. And it's so earned. It's so earned. I mean, really, just like, at the beginning of every season, I'd be like, it's a little cheesy. This show's a little cheesy. And then slowly but surely, because all of the story was just so well done, so well laid out, you would just sit there and go, yes, yes. This is great. This is great. I love this. I love what they're doing here, because it was just about characters, and all the characters' motivations were so earned, and all of the falls and the rises were earned. Really just well done. And I mean, it's like the ending is maybe the least well earned of all of it, but because everything leading up to this ending was as well earned as it was, again, you don't care. Give them their fucking happy ever after. I want every fucking character that I love to have a happy ever after here. And they deliver. They delivered, but it feels great. It feels earned. You're just happy. You're happy that you watched the series. You feel satisfied. You feel like that was worth my time. And it is 6 seasons. And going back to watch some Karate Kid movies, and it's worth your time. It's a lesson in good writing. You got John Kreese, the original sensei to Johnny Lawrence. His original arc, you had, he's the face of Cobra Kai's darkness. He's teaching fear, control, domination, and he's disgraced after instructing Johnny to fight dirty. In Cobra Kai, He's a deeply complex antagonist, really. He's got war trauma and bitterness that define him, that are shown to you in different flashbacks and whatnot. But he's shown to be human, but ultimately, kind of unwilling to change. But by the end of it, he does. And again, it's earned because he was in such resistance and he was so difficult to change. He out manipulates Terry Silver. He gets. I should say he initially he gets out manipulated by Terry Silver. Gets imprisoned, consumed by ego. But in the final season, you got him. I think some of these things I was crossing wires for the 5th season and 6th season. But you got him faking his own death. He escapes prison. Never receives redemption at first, but remains a haunting symbol of unhealed pain, the dark shadow of Cobra Kai that lives on outside the dojo. But then in the final season, he totally redeems himself. He really comes back correct as a new man, it's not immediate. He has to go through even more of like ups and downs with figuring out, who he is, tries to be Cobra, tries to bring back Cobra Kai again, and is ultimately defeated in a number of different ways and embarrassed in a number of ways. And when he comes back after that, it's finally sunk in, that he's a loser and his approach is a losing approach. And, and he realizes, it's going to make me cry. He realizes that Johnny was the best thing that ever happened to him. Johnny was a source of strength. Johnny had been winning. He won the All Valley. That was a sign of his ability to mentor, that he had things to offer people. And, and that full realization that Johnny was a point of strength and not a bit of weakness where, because Johnny won initially, and then at a certain point he lost and he was so embarrassed by these things and whatnot, he handled it poorly. And, to fucking exonerate Kreese, and especially after all the additional layers of shittiness they add on to him during the course of the Cobra Kai series, it's great stuff. You got Terry Silver, which his original arc, he's a megalomaniac with God complex. He uses wealth and psychology to corrupt Daniel. And he's introduced in part 3, as we said, as Kreese's dark benefactor. In Cobra Kai, he returns slicker, smarter, more dangerous than ever. He turns Cobra Kai into a global enterprise of toxicity, manipulating students, allies, and enemies alike. In the final season, he gets exposed publicly. He's defeated by Daniel, disgraced, imprisoned, dethroned, the grand manipulator undone by truth, a cautionary tale of unchecked ego and corrupted power. And that is just, they kind of do this to him twice, but both times they just kind of keep giving you a little bit more to you understand his motivation, you understand why he does what he does. And then later you see that he's motivated actually by the fact that he's dying and that he's like sort of like scrambling to do something that means something before he passes away. And, that's enough to make you understand a villain. And the more you can understand your villains, the more impactful they will be. Chosen, the villain of Karate Kid Part 2, he's obsessed with honor, rage, revenge. He loses to Daniel in Okinawa and is shamed in the original Part 2. Now in Cobra Kai, he returns as a changed man. He's wise, he's humble, and badass as hell. Initially you think that he's going to be like a rival, but essentially he's grown and he's learned sort of the error of his ways. He's stuck in that town where, Daniel had a girlfriend, and he's had some time to sit with it, and he's grown as a person. And that's beautifully depicted in a lot of different ways, especially because so many of the other characters come back as bad guys, but he came back as like a guy who was kind of like twisting the knife, but just to mess around with Daniel. And ultimately he trains Daniel. He becomes a powerful ally and a brother in arms. And, and he still carries his Okinawa intensity, but now it's channeled righteously, and essentially he represents like a Johnny Lawrence type who's healed. And in the final season, he lives. He helps bring down Silver. He gets shot at love. He gets a shot at love with Kamiko, but that, of course, doesn't exactly work out. But in the end of the final season, he gets a better shot at love with somebody that we like better for him, and I won't tell you who and how great that goes. But the wrap up in the final episode of the show, you see him get to reunite with the girl that you wanted him to be with. And it's just satisfying redemption. One of the most satisfying from the series, going from villain to samurai guardian, and it's awesome. Some of the smaller ones, you get Mike Barnes, who's the bad boy of karate, hired by Silva to break Daniel's spirit in Karate Kid Part 3. He's all brute force. He's zero conscience, but he's reformed. Now he owns a furniture store in the Cobra Kai series. He doesn't fight anymore until Silver ruins his life, and he becomes a reluctant ally to Daniel, Chosen, and Johnny. He fights with honor. He gets his hands dirty and emerges as a good man with a past, not fully healed, but finally seen for who he is, a fighter who walked away from the dark side. And you get like a little bit more too with him, a little guest appearance of him in the final 6th season, which is really excellent as well. Kamiko, I mean, I don't really got to like jump into Kamiko's stuff. I'd made a little couple of notes with her as well. But some of these things with the relationship with Chosen and relationship with Johnny, you get to see some of these things continue for those of you who might have been interested. But just the fact that they honored this relationship and these things and these ideas in any way, shape, or form, and didn't just throw them out to just do their own thing. It's awesome. It's awesome that Kamiko's name is actually mentioned in the first place, that she goes and she makes an appearance. Some of these movies really imprinted on somebody as a kid. And, whoever they imprinted on, whoever that character imprinted on, they got to see the character come back. And it's wonderful. When the original character, I forget her name, but the girl that Johnny and Daniel were fighting over in the original movie, she comes back just for a little bit. She makes some, minor guest appearances, and it's excellent. I love that movie, and it felt good having them. Daniel's married now. Johnny still is kind of in love with her. It's a little bit like will they, won't they? But also Johnny's got another relationship that he's interested in as well, but he had never exactly been over this girl. So just all this stuff handled so well. And then I wrote down Mr. Miyagi, who is spiritually present. He's the ultimate mentor. He's kind, he's mysterious, he's deeply wise. He trains Daniel, not just in karate, but in life. And, that's what the whole, at least Daniel's whole arc is about. Mr. Miyagi gifted me with my whole philosophy on life, how I live life. I'm a karate guy at my car dealership, and I cut bonsai trees, and I give you a free bonsai tree with every car that you buy. And, all of these things have shaped my life in so many ways, the way I think, the way I do things. And that presence is just totally felt in Cobra Kai. Even though Pat Morita had passed, his essence permeates every episode. And he even makes some, CGI deepfake appearances in the final season, which were interesting. And, and then in the final season too, through letters, memories, the teachings that guide Daniel, it's really amazing that, even though he's dead, his character lives on, his spirit lives on, and it's very honorable to the dead, honorable across the board. I'm sure the family of the actor is really glad that Mr. Miyagi is being honored in this way, and his role, one of his most famous roles, has been honored. I would be if it was one of my relatives, because it's done so well. Yeah, I mean, he's represented just as the spiritual foundation of the show, and ultimately his teachings defeat Cobra Kai in the 5th season, and then the 6th season, his teachings help to balance the new Cobra Kai and make that Cobra Kai the version of itself that will last, that has been tempered by Mr. Miyagi's wisdom that has been taught now to Johnny Lawrence. Johnny Lawrence has to have a fight at the very end, and he has Daniel-san as his sensei helping to teach him. And it's a really great moment with, like I said, you're getting your happy ever afters, but it's a great moment when Johnny goes, hey LaRusso, get over here, for them to share in holding the trophy. And he says to him, oh, it's going to make me cry. Ooh, I keep holding it back. He says, I couldn't have done it without you. I couldn't have done it without you. And it's true. They are integral to each other's growth as characters, and it's wonderful. Some of the major character breakdowns, you got Miguel Diaz. He's the first student. He's the heart of the new generation. He's Johnny Lawrence's first. And he's got to navigate loyalty and love and finding his place between Johnny and Daniel. And, I won't spoil every little beat of how this goes back and forth, how he ends up a student of Daniel LaRusso after, he starts with Johnny and ends up going back and forth. And with his relationship and different relationships that he has, the love triangles between him and Robbie Keane and their girlfriends, Tori Nichols and Samantha LaRusso. Great stuff. Robbie comes in great as like a fucking bad guy. He's Johnny's estranged son. He's torn between Cobra Kai and redemption. And one of the most dynamic character arcs in the whole show, and going from anger to grace, and it's gonna make me cry. It hit powerfully. It was really, really good. And he basically kind of gets taken out of things towards the end of the show. And the way they handled it, both in sort of resolving his character and then letting his character be a light post to his girlfriend, Tori Nichols. Great shit. And then Tori, she's a misunderstood fighter. She's fierce. She's loyal. She's wounded. And again, she's another one of these bad guys that's brought in who is eventually kind of exonerated and then unexonerated and exonerated again. And the back and forths, they will not give you whiplash because they're so well handled. And they're earned, and they take a while for these back and forths to happen. And it's some great stuff. And she represents an underdog with a chip on her shoulder, but a heart that wants to be good. Somebody with a backstory that just really makes you feel for her because of so many of the difficulties that are going on in her home life. And then Samantha LaRusso, who's Daniel LaRusso's daughter. She's great. She's trapped in a cycle of legacy and competition, where she goes basically just like LaRusso from entitled to empowered the right way, and becomes a good guy. She's a little bit of a protagonist that becomes a little bit of an antagonist that becomes a protagonist, and you're gonna love it. If you haven't seen all this stuff, if you haven't caught up on the final seasons, oh man, go do it. It's all excellent. There's some over the top shit that goes down in some of these episodes, but it's great, and it's always in the name of sort of giving the audience exactly what it would like, which is a certain amount of fighting. It's a karate show, so there's a lot of karate that breaks out. And you're like, really? Would that really happen? I don't know, but I'm enjoying this, and you'll enjoy it too. Finally, we got Hawk and Dimitri, who I wanted to mention, who are friends who go through like this sort of like splitting apart and then coming back together. That arc is great. The final seasons of Cobra Kai do a great job. Hawk is a nerd turned badass, and then again turned humble warrior. Is story about identity, changing his name, having a mohawk, what that means for his personality, getting a girlfriend, all these things that he couldn't do when he was just this nerdy guy. But you can become who you choose to be. And he chooses a lot of different paths before he ultimately settles on the better version of himself that you find in the end. And then his friend Dimitri, who is essentially not interested in karate or any of these different things. He was a comic relief character who gets turned into a competent fighter who, goes on his own journey because his best friend is becoming a competent fighter. And ultimately they become at odds with each other and enemies, but come back to be friends again. And they have a really interesting, simple arc of being, sort of not exactly on the same page with each other in the final season of the show. And it's excellent. Excellent, excellent. So let's go with final season endings. I already see, I did all of these. I already talked about all this stuff. Okay, yeah. Awesome. I think I've gotten through most of this stuff. John Kreese, we talked about Terry. Okay, well, we got also Kenny Payne, who's another one of the characters in there who's great. He's another one of these conflicted characters who becomes like he's bullied, and then he rises to the occasion to fight, and then he becomes the antagonist, and then it's back to him being the good guy. In the last season, they really did a good job about kind of back and forthing a lot of these rivalries and reigniting them in different ways. He has a bit of a rivalry with Daniel LaRusso's son, who's maybe one of my least favorite characters, but through Kenny Payne's character, you like and appreciate his story arc, because again, it's a little bit of that guy doing the wrong thing, laughing when he's in the power position and then not really appreciating it with all of a sudden, he's getting bullied. And that stuff is powerful. He becomes a pawn of Terry Silver's in the show. And it really just gives Terry Silver another person to manipulate. And Terry Silver is such a great character. And, Kenny's Kenny's good at playing the actor is really good at playing the, the focused and gone dark kid, but at the same time, he seems like this innocent kid who's been corrupted. And, that whole Terry Silver bit of him corrupting kids and whatnot is like, that's what makes him so cool. Devin Lee, her story arc isn't like the most interesting, but I just had written down a couple things for her, but just about people finding their own strength. And it's great stuff, man. I mean, really, at this stage of the game, I'm kind of just going to be repeating myself talking about any of these things. But finally, let's talk about the dojos. From Cobra Kai to Miyagi-Do to Johnny abandoning Cobra Kai and creating his own dojo, Eagle Fang, to him, or I should say the series, exonerating Kreese by the end and giving Johnny a way back into the tournament for Miguel and for Tori. And, by him re-embracing Cobra Kai and a way for them to take down Terry Silver, who fucking deserves it. And the audience by then, I mean, he's done so many things. Like you want to see, you want to have your audience root for the character's downfall. Just have them do as many nefarious things, work really hard to be pieces of shit as possible. And the audience will demand something be done about this motherfucker. And you were definitely demanding that something be done about Terry by the end. And it really well written that it was all aligned to fully bring things back to Cobra Kai, because to a certain degree, the show's called Cobra Kai. So even like him abandoning Cobra Kai and being Eagle Fang and all these things, it sort of like was a slight dishonoring of what the show was about. The show was originally about sort of bringing back Cobra Kai as like, this is cool, this means something, and honoring it. And by the end of this final season, it goes full circle, and you get that full exoneration of all these characters and all of these dojos. So fucking A, man. I mean, it's amazing. I wrote merged, aligned, ascended. They combine forces, unify under one shared philosophy, which really is embodied by Cobra Kai in the end of it, which basically gets the best of both worlds, gets the best of Miyagi-Do and what Cobra Kai had used to be. Honor, strength, and truth now. And the name may shift, but the spirit endures. And they become the true heart of karate, and it's really true. All of the dojos. I mean, it's like, I got to get myself a Miyagi-Do t-shirt. I got to get myself an Eagle Fang t-shirt. I'll probably stick with just the Eagle Fang t-shirt, actually, because that's like the nice, slightly deep cut. I love a good deep cut. Oh, yeah. This is the name of that freaking tournament. The tournament that is set up in the last 2 seasons is the Sekai Taikai. Sekai Taikai. It puts everything on a world stage. Really ups the ante on things. The Sekai Taikai is like, the type of blood sport. When you see Van Damme fighting the thing, like, people die, and it's supposed to be that next level thing. It doesn't quite feel that way because it still is like a TV show that's meant to be watched by families and stuff. So it doesn't quite feel quite that like bloody and brutal. But it's great. The story ends with the dojo invited to the Sekai Taikai, a global karate tournament. It's symbolic handoff. I'm sorry, I should say fifth season ends with that. And the future of the world lies now with the students. And now on a global scale. And there's really some great payoff to this in season 6, where you get sort of glory that comes from a number of the contestants in the Sekai Taikai getting to be karate celebrities after the fact. Yo, what up, Mr. Zin in the chat? Sorry, I haven't acknowledged the chat in a minute, but thank you guys. Appreciate you all being here. But yeah, the Sekai Taikai takes everything up to 11 and makes it this global championship. So before I get into like my final words on this subject, I wanted to go over just like 10 of like my most badass moments from the show. And I did it like as a little countdown. You've got the final tournament. Stakes couldn't be higher. Every rivalry, every philosophy, every lesson comes to a head in the Sekai Taikai qualifier showdown. Every character shows, how far they've come, and the final matches deliver full-blown, satisfying payoffs. You've got Miguel, you've got Tori, and the fact that LaRusso's daughter isn't in the thing, that's satisfying. She bails out because she's like, I don't really have a dog in this fight. Like, I'm happy. Like, I could defend myself. The reasons why I was fighting yesterday aren't righteous. And Miguel has become brother to Johnny's other son. And he got injured, and Miguel is getting revenge on he was again some underhanded type moves that go on, some additional force that didn't need to be used. And Miguel comes, and the Miguel fight's great. The Tori fight's great. The Johnny Lawrence fight is maybe the weakest of the three, which is the final one. But again, like I said, when you put your character through the paces properly, it doesn't matter if it's even like a weak finale. Like, you'll be like, yes, he won. You'll be so happy. And the emotional payoff of just him and LaRusso holding a trophy together, him telling him, I couldn't have done it without you, all that stuff, just wonderful. Number 9, I have Chosen's Redemption. I really like that. I appreciated it. A lot of this was done off camera, but basically LaRusso goes to visit Okinawa, and he comes up as sort of like, you think he's going to be a bad guy, and he's kind of fucking with LaRusso for a little while. But ultimately it comes that he's realized that he was a dick, that he had caused a lot of his own problems, and he just goes from villain to hero in such a great way, and then becoming this kind of badass wild card who's living on LaRusso's couch, and his wife's complaining about it. It was great. It was really great, and this Chosen's he's great. He's really charming. He was a great bad guy in the movie. It was probably one of the best parts of the Karate Kid Part 2, and seeing him come back and them honor him in that way is excellent. And Chosen, a lot of these guys, they're real karate guys. They have history. The reason why they were cast in the first place was because they were capable of performing. Whether it's Daniel Zabka or William Zabka, and so many of the bad guys and all these things, they have a history of being karate people. They knew how to perform on this level, and so it was just great to see, nobody's replaced. It's not just a name, it's the actual guy. That's the bad guy from the movie. And he's there, oh shit, what's going to happen? But he's cool. He's learned the error of his ways, and now he's helping Daniel to reconnect with his past. Great stuff. Well, I forgot that I wrote this twice, so it's going to end up being like a 9-bit. But in general, I'll give it. I guess I just kind of broke it into 2 things. In general, Miguel Diaz, his arc in particular was awesome, but he gets injured really badly, and he comes back, and and to basically come back from an injury, and the whole doubt and all the different things that he goes through are awesome. There's a really particular great moment that is my number 1 that I'm gonna put as that separately. But paralyzed, defeated, depressed. His journey from it's amazing. Number 7, Johnny and Daniel finally unite. Decades of rivalry, and now they're senseis for each other. They're teaching each other's classes. The idea that Daniel LaRusso finally is okay with Cobra Kai and isn't haunted by it anymore by the end of it, and that he can train him. He shows up in a black gi, a Cobra Kai gi, and his wife is at the audience, and she goes, oh, Daniel looks good in black. and it's just a great moment, because it just kind of puts the icing on top, the cherry on top of this idea that Johnny's Johnny's completely exonerated. The whole sort of relationship rivalry is exonerated. They've moved on to larger things, the things that were really controlling them and making them fight and making them have this rivalry in the first place. It's great stuff. 6, Hawk's transformation, going from shy, bullied Eli to wild, arrogant Hawk to a balanced, humble fighter. Excellent stuff. I mean, really, what Hawk, a new name, a new haircut. I just can't imagine that there are not thousands of kids across America and wherever else who have watched the show that changed their haircut, changed their attitude, and went back to school a new man or a new woman because they were inspired by Eli and his ability to do that. And he changed in a lot of ways, growing, going to win the All Valley Championship. It's a crowning moment, and it's just wonderful to see that on display. Just the idea that you can change yourself, for the better. You can get some constructive criticism, which he certainly did, from Johnny Lawrence when he goes to join Cobra Kai, and he comes back a new man who's not going to fucking take anybody's shit anymore. And yes. Number 5, Tori exposes Silver's deception. Tori, who's one of Silver's loyal students for a little while, she chooses truth over fear. She's got a lot of reasons why she's gone into this dark place, this dark path, but she is excellent. And, she is really a good person, and she comes out of it in a wonderful way. And she gets to be the person who exposes Silver. And of course, I loved as well, getting there was, the LaRusso's wife. She just sees something in her, that's just reminds her of herself. And even though her daughter and her are fighting, she doesn't want all this fighting. And she sees what this little girl's going through, and she goes, I can't just hate this girl because she got into a fight with my daughter. She's going through something, and she needs somebody to be there for her. And I don't see anybody else, so I'm going to do it, or it's going to make me cry. But yeah, Tori's redemption arc through the LaRusso family, which is paid off really lovely in the 6th season, is just great. It's really awesome. Number 4, the school brawl. The school brawl is great. You got Miguel and Johnny's son, his estranged son, and you got Tori and Samantha. Ugh, it was one of the most talked about fight scenes in TV history. The tension, it was great. It had been simmering. It was very well earned, as everything on this show is earned. And it just explodes into a chaotic and beautifully choreographed fight that forever changes the dojo dynamics and really leaves lasting scars on all these kids, and really focused on the kids. So many people are in there for the Cobra Kai and Karate Kid stuff, right? But here they are. This is all the new characters in the school. No legacy characters, just the kids, the ones that they've introduced. But they've done such a great job building all these kids up that fight and all the ramifications of it are well earned. And that it's great stuff. It really is. Number 3, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I love the Daniel returning to Okinawa. This ties into Chosen's redemption, but also into him going from being the antagonist of the series of Cobra Kai, who's really trying to get there and fuck with Johnny. And, we're on Johnny's side. So we don't really want him to succeed. And we're feeling like he's being a little arrogant, whatever else. And when he goes to Mr. Miyagi's homeland and, reconnects with his, former girlfriend, Kamiko, and Chosen, who's now, redeemed, it's supposed to be a trip to sell cars, but he's also, has it in mind that this is going to be his spiritual reset. And, he comes back, the man that he ended the first movie as, the person who has learned balance and is able to not just be led by revenge or, his anger. Number 2, the Johnny versus Kreese dojo showdown and the Johnny versus Kreese fucking hug it out bitch in the final season. These 2 moments are great. In I forget what season it is now, but Johnny, when he finally confronts, his sensei who broke him, it's brutal, it's emotional, it's in the dojo, and it's it's more about, it's more than karate. They're destroying the dojo while they're fighting, and it's it's just people reclaiming their identity. Both Kreese this is my dojo, and Johnny you took all this from me, you took all the joy of this from me, and just Johnny's protecting the next generation, and for once in this instant, Johnny wins. And then when it comes back and they have their scene in the hallway, and he it's you almost feel right before the scene starts that oh man, is this going to be some cheesy bit of oh dad, don't leave sensei, but instead Johnny goes at him and he really just lays into him about what he did, what he really did. He lays his heart bare. It's you were a father figure to me. I didn't have one. I wanted to make you so proud. Oh, it's gonna make me cry. Am I finally gonna cry? Just the amount of times that I've almost cried. It just is demonstrating of how freaking really good and powerful the damn show is. But he just lays it out to Kreese that you have no idea how you broke me when you broke my trophy and you embarrassed me in front of everybody. You attacked me, my father figure, the person who I loved, the person who I was trying to impress. You broke my heart. You ripped out a piece of me. Gonna cry. It was great. It was so awesome, so well earned. Okay, my number 1 moment. My father, Dee Snider, former singer of Twisted Sister, he shows up in Cobra Kai during Miguel's healing arc. My father has shown up in a lot of things over the years, and time again, I have been devastated by the way they wanted to depict him or the way they wanted to depict his music or his era. And it was usually not exactly fucking flattering. And I hated it. Time and time again, he would show up in little guest appearances over the past like 30 years, since the 80s. After the 80s, there's been like this little desire to like make a Twisted Sister or a Motley Crue or any of these bands into some sort of one-note joke that they're dressed up as women or any of this stuff. My father is one of the greatest frontmen who has ever lived. He is just an incredible performer, an incredible vocalist, and one of my favorite songwriters of all time. And Twisted Sister was not a typical glam band. They were freedom fighters. They, in particular, my father, who wrote the majority of the music for Twisted Sister ever that has ever been released, he wrote like the Declaration of Independence in music. He would just write these songs that were about standing up for yourself and being yourself, from I Am I Me and I Want to Rock, which is a song about being yourself, and We're Not Going to Take It. All of these songs that he wrote, there's so many of them. He taught me everything that I know about being a strong man and a strong artist who is there for people. That being an artist and writing songs, it's about being a conduit to others so that they can feel empowered and that they don't have to feel so lonely. And oh God, I'm finally gonna cry. When I heard that he was going to be on the show, I expected the typical everything that had ever happened with him. But that's not what happened. It's my favorite. It's my favorite time. And I didn't even have to be a fan of the show for this to be my favorite moment that my father has ever shown up anywhere to make any guest appearance. He is so well honored. And William Zabka is a friend of my father's. I've never met William, but they've known each other for a long time, well before Cobra Kai had ever aired. My dad had known about the show because he would see William over the years, and my dad was always really nice to Will, and I guess William appreciated it. And they're producers on the show. The Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence. They become producers, and I'm positive that that Johnny fucking I'm positive that Zabka said, "I know Dee Snider. Let's get him in." And I'm positive that he had something to do with the depiction of my father. I said, it's season 3, episode 5. If you want to just go watch this, Miguel is lost. He's broken. He's unsure he'll ever walk again. So Johnny takes him to see Dee Snider live. And as Twisted Sister's I Want to Rock shreds through the speakers, Johnny points and gives my father more respect in one fucking sentence than generations of asshole fucking producers in Hollywood and whatever else have ever fucking given my father. He says, "That's Dee Snider, one of the most badass rockers ever." Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, he is. Thank you, Johnny Lawrence. And like a fucking miracle, Miguel starts moving his foot. His fucking spirit reunited by the power of pure, undiluted rock and roll, healed by music. Not just a great moment, a fucking healing event. Cue the fucking metal horns, man. It's my favorite moment of this series, and maybe I'm biased, but Dee Snider is one of the most badass rockers ever. And he made sense to be on that show. My father has kept himself in shape. My father has not trained, but he and I used to ride BMX bikes together, and he was in the gym regularly. He never wanted to be some fucking fat, performer on stage. He's always wanted to be powerful. Right now, he's dealing with some injuries, and it's killing him that he has to go out on stage, like a punk and not be as active and powerful as he has been in the past. But he will be. He will return. He's got a surgery coming up in a little bit, and it meant so damn much for me. What somebody in the chat, freaking Wiener, said, "Oh yeah, man. Oh fucking yeah." It's so great. I wrote down the episode so you could go watch it. Season 3, episode 5. Fucking A. It's my favorite. And it's so well earned by the series, but also well earned by my fucking father, who deserved to have that said about him so fucking cleanly by a character like Johnny Lawrence, who would totally be the type of character who would get some inspiration from my father and my father's words and music. He is a freedom fighter, and he has taught people to be powerful. And I just love that. Love seeing him in that light. Love seeing him depicted that way. Thank you, Cobra Kai. It's my favorite moment of the whole show. Like I said, Miguel's his healing, that was earlier in the list. But that moment, that's Dee Snider, one of the most badass rockers ever. Yes, agreed, 100%. And anybody who says otherwise simply has never been in a fucking crowd when Dee fucking Snider is playing music. I promise you, even now, you will not be disappointed. If you ever get a chance to go see my father play live, do it. Do it. All right. Let's bring this shit to a fucking beautiful conclusion, shall we? What Cobra Kai teaches us. Cobra Kai didn't try to be clever. It tried to be true to the past, to its characters, to its fans. That's the important one. Every arc was earned. Every beat was respected. Every moment mattered. This show proves that you don't need to subvert expectations to be great. You just need to meet them with honor and pay them off like a motherfucker. That's storytelling. That's karate. That's legacy. And for every geek who ever watched a beloved story fall apart for no fucking reason because they couldn't honor the fucking source material, this one nailed the landing. Strike first, strike hard, but most of all, strike true. I love you guys. I will see you later. There will be no Saturday episode of this show because guess what? Next week's episode of Coolest Geek Alive is episode number fucking 200. I've recorded 200 episodes of this show, and on Saturday, I'm going to see Dee Snider fucking kick some ass in upstate New York with Lita Ford. So all full circle, baby. It really is. It's going to be so. I'm so excited to see my dad. A lot of my kids are a little busy with some important stuff this weekend, so it looks like it's just going to be me and my daughter Parker Pride and one of my new best friends David Alusic, who's also the promotion manager for Blacklight District Studios. He helps promote our podcasts and other things like the box set of my music that's coming out. Shout out to David, you rule, my friend. I'm really excited to go see him. But in combination with the fact that I would have been doing episode 200 on the weekend and not during the Wednesday episode, which is supposed to be, that's when I do my long show. Saturday episodes are usually short, little coolest picks, coolest classics, whatever it might be. I figured I'm just going to skip this Saturday. I'm going to enjoy seeing my dad live. And next Wednesday, show up here for a very exciting episode. It's actually going to be a joint episode of Coolest Geek Alive and Everything They Don't Want You to Know. So please join me next Wednesday for a fucking awesome 200th episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. Love you guys. Thank you for joining me today. See you next time. Peace.
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part! Isn't it heavy? I played that! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Coolest alive! It's gonna be fucking awesome! gonna be fucking awesome.
Talking some shit.
It's gonna be fucking awesome.
Living your shit.
My voice gonna be fucking awesome.
Food in our mouth.
It's gonna be fucking awesome. Get in the mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome.
Tell all your friends.
It's gonna be fucking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be fucking awesome.
Raising the bar.
It's gonna be fucking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be fucking awesome.
It's starting soon.
Straight to the top of the awesome. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome.
On with the show.
It's gonna be fucking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.
You'll all see.